The Miz has responded to John Oliver's anti-WWE rant on HBO. What up, y'all? Welcome back to the review space. I'm checking out this article on WrestlingInc.com, and yes, the fallout after the controversial John Oliver last week tonight HBO segment about WWE and their dubious practices. Let's just put it that way. We're still feeling the after effects of it. We're still seeing people respond to it, and this time it is the Mike Mizanin himself, the Miz, the one of the more charismatic promo mic skill workers of WWE. And over the years I've developed more respect for the Miz. I've gotten more respect for him, especially his mic work and him just basically growing as a performer over these the past decade, especially the past couple of years, especially his work on SmackDown and having some great matches against guys like Dolph Ziggler and things like that. So, I kind of look at the Miz as a very valuable wrestler, a very valuable performer, and so he's responded to John Oliver's last week tonight segment. Let's go check it out. Hold on, let me adjust my microphone. Hopefully, this doesn't become staticky. It's kind of funny, my microphone, my headset's microphone has been really, really effing up and really, basically turning heel against me. And so it's basically, sometimes I'll record, in the past couple of days, I've been recording some stuff, really the past week, I've been recording several different podcasts and episodes. And the audio has been really, really, really staticky. I mean, it just sounds so bad. So, unfortunately, it sounds horrible. And hopefully this doesn't come out staticky. If it does, then I apologize because, just my freaking luck when I recorded the John Oliver, CM Punk reacting to John Oliver one. That one turned out to be, when it came out, after I finished recording that audio, it turned out to be super staticky, and the audio quality was so bad. It sounded like I was recording it through a telephone, like an outdated telephone from the 90s or something like that. It just what I'm saying, it doesn't have that crisp audio quality that my microphone usually does. At least it sounds kind of regular. But that one in particular, just the audio sounds so horrible. I mean, it sounds very staticky. And it's almost like again, I'm recording through a telephone or some other. It's like I'm the audio quality sounds like I'm recording it and then it's being played over the radio. It's like ugh, what I'm saying. So that it's my luck. It's my luck. It's this horrible microphone. I have no idea why technology is so against me. It's pathetic. It really is pathetic. But anyway, you got to make do with what you got available. So anyway. Checking out what The Miz said. So this is the article. The Miz spoke with Sports Illustrated to promote WrestleMania 35 today and defended the WWE against John Oliver's criticism from the recent Last Week Tonight on HBO. The Miz, who will face Shane McMahon in a Falls Count Anywhere match on Sunday, this WrestleMania, said people taking shots at WWE during WrestleMania season is expected. The A-lister also said he's been with WWE for more than 30 years and he lives a pretty incredible life because of it. And so this is what The Miz said. Who doesn't take shots at WWE, especially when WrestleMania is around? All the news is about that, The Miz said. The way I look at what he said, and I don't know all of it verbatim, I've been here for 13 plus years. I met my wife in WWE. And we now have a child together, and trust me, I live a pretty incredible life. It's not every day where you get to go out in front of 80,000 people and either have them boo or cheer you, but be interactive. We get to create moments that last a lifetime, and the way I'm treated, I've got to perform in movies with WWE Studios. I have my own reality show, Ms. and Mrs. on the USA Network, which you can see every Tuesday. Cheap plug, cheap pop, I get it. And he goes, I've been so fortunate of everything that WWE has given to me. Now, are there people that are going to be disgruntled and upset? I imagine you have people here at SI now that are disgruntled and upset. oh, I should get this, I should get that. But the thing is, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing to get it? And I feel like I've gotten everything I've ever wanted from WWE and more. And so the article continues, as we've noted, John Oliver once again called out WWE, this time for how the WWE superstars are treated by the company and their status as independent contractors. He also suggested fans use their voice as they did with the Give Divas a Chance movement, noting that there's potential for fans to make signs and create chants at WrestleMania 35 to help push long-term health care for the wrestlers, and for the wrestlers to be classified as actual employees instead of independent contractors. WWE responded to Oliver's rant. Okay. So I've already talked about the response of WWE, and so the article continues. The Miz is just the second WWE superstar to publicly respond to the comments. As noted, Big Show spoke with TMZ earlier today and defended the company. And apparently, this is what Big Show said, which I actually missed this one. You know, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, Big Show said. Everybody's got their own experiences and how they feel. I've had a heck of a career. I've had a lot of injuries. I knew from day one stepping through the ropes that it was not an easy job. It was a job that I was going to put myself at risk, and I took the paychecks. I took the fame, I took the fortune, and those are the risks that happen. That's just part of the industry, and the industry has changed. It's done everything it can to protect the athlete and create longevity for the athlete. I'm 47 years old. I'm still rock and rolling. So they're doing something right. They're doing something right. Above is he's talking about his original rant and the Miz's comment to Sports Illustrated. Yada 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 yada. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the article. Okay, so there's a lot over there. I didn't even know that Big Show already spoke with TMZ. Alright. The Miz is one of the safer workers that the WWE has had in, let's say, the past 10, 15 years. And his in-ring style is a lot more slowed down, a lot more watered down. It's very reflective of the mid-2000s. You know, this was back in the around like 2004, 2005, all the way to 2008. Where the in-ring style was a lot more watered down. It wasn't as high risk, it wasn't as high flying, and it wasn't as fast paced. They actually in WWE they actually slowed down the style. In the early 2000s, especially with SmackDown and on the SmackDown TV show, they would have those crazy fast-paced matches where it was very physical and it was very almost like a strong style, an American version of a strong style where it was a lot more risky. So you have guys like, I'm sure like guys like Rob Van Dam back in the day, guys like Edge and Rey Mysterio, and even like the Hardy Boys, and of course like Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, guys on the main roster, whether it was SmackDown and Raw, that was having a lot more physical matches, more riskier maneuvers, and certainly more of an evolved style. Their in-ring was really good, but it was a lot more kind of dangerous and a lot more, almost like the style that the cruiserweights have now, or the guys on the indies, where they take a lot more risks. But this was back in the early 2000s, So the in-ring product improved from the 90s generation, where I would say definitely in the 90s, they had some physically impressive matches, but it was a lot more, it wasn't as in-ring driven, it was a lot more character driven, especially in the Attitude Era. Guys like Stone Cold and The Rock, it was all about the promos, the personalities, the larger-than-life charisma that these guys had, and the storylines that surrounded it, that catapulted these guys onto the next level. With the early 2000s, it became a little bit more in-ring focused, a little bit more faster paced, but then I think that started to kind of get toned down by like 2004-ish, around that time where they kind of slowed down the matches. So by like 2005, 2006, guys like Cena, guys like Randy Orton, guys like even the more faster paced guys like RVD and Chris Benoit and those kind of guys, their in-ring became a little bit slowed down, more watered down, not as high risk, not as fast paced, and they were taking, they were doing less risky movements and risky maneuvers. It was like it was a little bit safer. And so my point is that guys like The Miz, when he started coming in the mid 2000s, and it wasn't just him, you could kind of see that safer style with guys like Chris Masters, and even like Batista to a certain degree, and even John Cena to a certain degree. These guys that came in during the ruthless ruthless aggression era, mid 2000s era of WWE, that were kind of taught to be a little bit more safer in the ring. They weren't as high risk. They weren't as faster paced. Even guys like Triple H to a certain degree was not that impressive anymore in the ring. And I say not even impressive. It's not even like not impressive, but they just weren't as high risk, or their matches weren't like amazing. They weren't having like these incredible must-see matches that was like, a super strong style, high flying, and it was a lot more watered down. Basically, it was a lot slower down, and so The Miz came from that generation. He came from that toned down mid 2000s era. So the fact that he's bragging about that, and he's basically saying, listen, for the past 13 years, that's been my style. That's been my in-ring, and I've been able to become safe because of it. I've become one of the safer workers where, I don't get injured, that much. I don't have the high risk of injury like the other guys do. And I've had a really long career and very successful career. And he talked about, putting over basically WWE of like, I met my wife here, Maurice, and, so he discovered happiness there. He became a family man because of WWE. He got TV shows and movies. And so I can understand why The Miz would want to protect and defend the WWE, because he was put in such a good position in WWE he's a made guy. He became a WWE champion back in 2010 to 2011. He was able to retain that title at WrestleMania 27, and unfortunately, Mania 27 had probably one of the worst critically received in-ring performances, one of the worst main events of all time in WrestleMania history, because of The Miz's performance. The Miz and John Cena, and I think also The Rock got involved in it as an interference. So it wasn't a good match, and it was actually considered one of the worst matches in WrestleMania main event history. But The Miz does have a long career. He's not the kind of guy that gets constantly injured, where he's always out all the time, and he's not taking that many high risks. He's a very safe worker. He keeps it safe. So he's very smart because of that. That makes him a smart guy, a very intelligent guy, and somebody who's able to have that long-term longevity, that long-term, he doesn't get taken out of action. He's always there because he's not taking high risks, so he's a little bit more safer than, let's say, somebody like a Jeff Hardy, or somebody like Neville, or somebody like Finn Balor, or somebody, I'm sure, like Ricochet is going to end up injured someday. The guy is just taking so many high risks. Guys like Mustafa Ali, and guys, Ali. He's called Ali now, no more Mustafa. Even guys like Daniel Bryan, who had a very physical style for many, 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 many years, especially back in the Indies. The Miz was kind of the opposite of that. The Miz had a very safe in-ring style. He wasn't as high risk, and he's got every right to brag about that. He's got every right to talk about how he's a very safe worker, and he also found a lot of happiness and success in WWE. Not everybody can be like The Miz. Not everybody had the same success as him. Not everybody was able to become WWE champion and retain against John Cena at WrestleMania. Not everybody can say that. Not everybody can say that they were able to hook up and ultimately marry one of the most beautiful WWE divas and female wrestlers of all time in Maurice. She, in my opinion, is one of the hottest females that they've ever had. Her and Tori Wilson are up there for me. So he's a very lucky guy, and he's become very successful. I give him a lot of props. He's an alpha male in every sense of the word. And what I mean by alpha male is he is a guy who's very successful, and he was able to to take the brass ring, as Vince McMahon puts it. He was able to take the initiative and become that successful guy who can pull off what's required of him. He's a winner. The Miz is a winner in life, in his job, and when it comes to relationships. I mean, the guy is a winner. There is no doubt about it, and I applaud him. He is an alpha male. Good for him. Like, I give him props for that. But the thing is, not everybody has the same style as The Miz. Not everybody has the in-ring safe style. And the in-ring safe style doesn't work for everybody. Again, guys like Ricochet. Guys like maybe even an Aleister Black. Guys who are not necessarily, they don't look like The Miz, they don't have his size, they don't have his height. And I'm not saying that The Miz is like this huge muscular guy like a Lex Luger or somebody who's like an Adonis, a guy who looks like a bodybuilder like Triple H in his prime, or somebody like Scott Steiner. But what I am saying is The Miz is, he's over 6 feet tall. He's probably about 230, 240 pounds. He's got an athletic build. He's kind of a good-looking guy, and he's a perfect guy for WWE. So you got other performers, other superstars who don't look like him. They don't have his height. They don't have his build. They don't have his mic skills and his charisma. So they got to kind of overcompensate in different ways. They have to perform more high-risk maneuvers. Guys like Rey Mysterio, Booyaka Booyaka 619. I mean, Rey Mysterio is significantly smaller. He's a smaller dude. He doesn't have the mic skills of The Miz. He doesn't have the kind of a good-looking Hollywood star looks of The Miz. You know what I'm saying? So Rey Mysterio has all these different things going against him. But what does Rey Mysterio do? He's an in-ring high flyer. You know what I'm saying? His style is very high-flying oriented. You know what I'm saying? That lucha libre, luchador style. And it's not just him. It's guys like Kalisto and Sin Cara and Lince Dorado, I think, and all the other high-flying, Latin wrestlers. Even guys like Andrade Cien Almas. You know what I'm saying? Like guys like him that came over from Mexico that have that kind of high-octane, lucha libre style. So not everybody's going to be able to kind of coast by on his looks and on his mic skills like The Miz. And The Miz is able to kind of coast and kind of pass by the in-ring work rate. And like I don't think anybody, I don't even think that Vince McMahon looks at The Miz as this amazing in-ring performer. He doesn't look at him as like a Bret Hart or a Shawn Michaels or a, even somebody probably like a Kofi Kingston or Daniel Bryan who's like tremendous in the ring, or an AJ Styles. Nobody looks at The Miz that way. But there's a lot of value in him. He's a good-looking dude. He's got charisma. He's got dedication. He's got work ethic. He's got a good look. He's got a little bit of some size to him. He's not like a super small guy. So other guys though that don't have that quality will want to end up taking more risks, especially like even the women, the female wrestlers like a Sasha Banks or a Charlotte or a Becky Lynch even, or even Ronda Rousey to a degree, that will take high risks. They'll do certain moves that's like super impressive, or they'll use they'll utilize the weapons and have they'll take more risky maneuvers, and they're more willing to do that to impress the fans. And so not everybody's going to be as safe as The Miz. Not everybody's going to have that safe style, that safe in-ring work rate that The Miz has been able to coast by in the past 13 years. Not everybody's going to be as safe as The Miz, and I don't want everybody to have the same style as The Miz. I think it works for The Miz. Like whatever works for The Miz, that's fine. It's good for him. And I can understand why he would defend the WWE. But to have health insurance for everybody, I think that would be a good thing. And to list everybody as formal employees, as legal employees, instead of so-called independent contractors, where WWE does not have really as much responsibility for the wrestlers' behalf as far as like long-term health care and those kind of things. I think it's a necessary conversation. I understand why The Miz is sticking up for WWE because he's in a very unique position of he's very successful. I understand that he's been able to live a very happy life and he's been able to get a lot of good things out of WWE. He's been treated really, 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 really well. I get it. He met his beautiful wife there. He's got a family. He's got movies. He's got a reality show. He's very successful, no doubt about it. But the fact of the matter is not everybody's going to have those opportunities because they don't look like him. And they don't have the same charisma as him or mic skills. You know, Vince McMahon's going to look at somebody like Akira Tozawa as just some, this guy from Japan, this smaller dude from Japan that's just like a cruiserweight. And so, Akira Tozawa is going to have to do some high-risk moves. He's going to have to be a little bit more risky in the ring and do some, like, incredible, crazy maneuvers, like that one little dive that he does where he falls on his back. It's like I don't know, it's almost like a senton kind of thing, like a really high-risk senton. You know what I'm saying? And then, the other guys in the cruiserweight division that's doing, like, incredible high-risk maneuvers that are not necessarily the most charismatic on the microphone, or they don't have the big size. Guys like I'm trying to think of some of the other cruiserweight dudes. They actually let go of so many of the cruiserweight guys already because they're just kind of seen as disposable. You know what I'm saying? Even though they're amazing in the ring or they had some really good in-ring matches and stuff like that, a lot of those guys have been let go. Whether it's like Neville and TJP. And I think Hideo Itami was another one, although I think he asked for his release. Enzo Amore was kind of a different story. Austin Aries was another one, another perfect example of somebody who had some potential. And so these guys in the cruiserweight division, or I should say the 205 Live, some of them might have potential. Some of them might have some potential to go to the next level, but they don't have the same size as The Miz. They don't have the same promo skills as The Miz. They don't have the same charisma as The Miz. So they gotta take higher risks. And so it would benefit all these guys and the women too, like a Sasha Banks and Bayley and Becky Lynch and so on and so forth, to have health insurance, to have a unionized system within the WWE. Workers union, and to basically be listed as actual employees where they get taken care of by the company, and also not just be dismissed as independent contractors. That's where the whole CM Punk controversy came from, or like part of the reason why CM Punk was able to, I think he was able to squeeze that money, that check out of them. He had like a check that was like lying around, and he wanted to, he basically hooked up with his lawyer, and he was basically like, listen, you can't withhold my money, and I'm an independent contractor. Like, you can't withhold my money, you can't tell me where to go and what I can and can't do, basically. Let me do whatever I want to do. It's within his freedom as an independent contractor. You know what I'm saying? And so I think overall this is a very good conversation to have. Do I think that John Oliver was being opportunistic and he was using WrestleMania season, especially the fact that WrestleMania is barely, not even like it's less than a week away. It's just right around the corner. Was John Oliver being opportunistic in showing and talking about WWE and talking about the bad stuff regarding the the lack of healthcare and the independent contractor controversy? I think he was, and he was definitely using WrestleMania season because it's very timely, but I think he's just doing it. He's done this before with like the FIFA thing, the FIFA event. I think back in 2014 when they were holding that event, the FIFA. I think it was the World Cup. I think in 2014, and he was talking about that. And FIFA was just right around the corner when that started. I'm sorry, the World Cup, and he started bashing FIFA. He started putting them on blast. He started criticizing them. You know what I'm saying? And Sepp Blatter and all that stuff. The questionable practices of FIFA. So he was able to do, and he does this when it's timely, when it's time to do it. So I think that he was Yeah, he was doing it because it's WrestleMania time, and it would get people to notice his episode, and it's timely. Timing is everything, and the timing was perfect, I think, for John Oliver. You know what I'm saying? Do I think that he just did it for ratings? I think it's a very important topic. I think that John Oliver is the kind of guy that talks about these subjects as a way to bring attention to them, as a way to talk about the subjects and get more people to focus on a subject and to get people to notice it, like the Edward Snowden thing, like the FIFA thing, like NRA TV and televangelists, all these different controversial things, or these shadowy organizations, or these questionable practices. John Oliver wants to shed light on it, and he wants to get that conversation going. It's really interesting because John Oliver is the kind of guy who's had, he's had some impact, I think, when it comes to influencing some of these topics, like with the FIFA thing. I believe after he did the FIFA videos over the years, and he's done more than one. I think he's done at least a couple more after the original one, and he would talk about Sepp Blatter, which is basically I think the head of the FIFA organization. I think he's like the president or whatever. Whatever, he's the head of that organization. And I think ultimately Sepp Blatter, I think, ended up stepping down, and FIFA they ended up taking up a lot of heat from that particular John Oliver segment. They took a lot of negative attention. They got a lot of negative attention, and people focused more on it. It put a magnifying glass on FIFA's practices. It made people more aware of FIFA's practices. You know what I'm saying? And so I think overall, I think he's had some impact, especially when it comes to things like politics. When it comes to things like hey, use social media and let this person know that this is wrong. And he would do that, and so some people would actually end up doing that. A lot of his fan base, people that watch his show. And so the word gets spread around, and hey, like, be aware that this is happening. And so, do I think that John Oliver will specifically have an impact on WWE, or that WWE will end up changing and actually, end up, let's say, applying healthcare to their employees, or change the whole independent contractor thing and actually classify them as actual employees somewhere in the future? Do I think that WWE is going to end up changing because of this snowball effect that potentially John Oliver can have? Do I think that it's going to be an actual cause and effect by John Oliver? I don't know. I have no idea. It's possible. It's possible that in the future, let's say the next couple of years, that Vince McMahon does end up changing his mind, or he ends up getting convinced by people like Stephanie McMahon or Triple H or whoever that's in his ear. It's possible that Vince McMahon ends up changing his mind, and he actually does apply these changes, and does end up finally changing the company where the employees get more power and leverage. They can unionize. They end up becoming listed as employees instead of independent contractors. They get healthcare benefits, and so on and so on and so forth. I think it's possible, but I don't necessarily want to bet on it. It's kind of 50-50 for me. It's maybe it might happen, maybe it's not. It's probably not going to happen. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't guarantee anything. Like, that's something where I can see Vince McMahon completely just going, you know what? We don't even agree with John Oliver. He doesn't get the... And, they put out that statement already where it's like, John Oliver doesn't have all the facts. So already WWE is playing defensive, and they're already kind of like, going against what John Oliver said. They're already defending themselves and already like trying to portray themselves as, the victim here. Like, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, yeah, he's funny, but he doesn't know. He doesn't have everything. He doesn't know everything. He doesn't know all the facts. You know what I'm saying? What we're doing is the right thing. So I think Vince McMahon he's probably never going to really change when it comes to that, and it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't change his company's policies regarding the independent contractor and the, not providing health care for his employees. It wouldn't surprise me because that's just what he is. He's been doing this for many, many, many decades. That's just his personality. That's his business mindset, and he doesn't want to lose a lot of money. He doesn't want to lose a lot of financial power, and he doesn't want to give too much power to his employees where they got workers union and they can unionize and they can change policies and basically demand more things from WWE. So I don't really think that Vince McMahon is going to be willing to give that up. So let's go take a look at the comment section just very briefly. So the comments, what's up with the comments on this particular article? Okay, so this is from Kevy Schaff. I will say this, WWE has made huge leaps in terms of keeping their wrestlers healthy and away from harmful use of substances. Oh yeah, so I guess this would be in response to their wellness policy, which has gotten a lot of critical acclaim over the years. So I guess Miz is the right guy to interview, considering he pretty much came around the Benoit demise when WWE started that change of the illegal chair shots to the head, the wellness suspensions. Compare how many wrestlers who were signed after 2008 have passed away to, let's say, wrestlers who were signed in the 80s or late 90s. That's true, although I think it's a little too early yet to tell, since like 2008. I get it, that's, over 10 years ago, over a decade ago now, and you have guys like The Miz who's a little bit more safer. I understand that it's a little bit safer now, and they do have the wellness policy, and that is very commendable. But you want to compare to the 80s, 90s, superstars that have passed away. They suffered health issues. I think it's a little early to tell right now. We're gonna have to wait probably the next 10, 15 years to see the current superstar today, the superstars and wrestlers today, the in-ring performers today, and see how they end up in the long run. Whether they still survive 10, 15, 20 years from now. To see how long basically they live. And I know that sounds kind of morbid, and it's almost like a ticking clock to see how long they can live. The guys now, guys like Mustafa Ali, guys like Daniel Bryan, guys like Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. These modern guys now, will they last as long as the guys who passed away from the 80s and 90s era of wrestling? Maybe not. You just don't know because it's still wrestling. It's still like an in-ring, physically demanding thing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure at least a couple of those guys use some substances. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's too early to say that, like guys are facing so much health. They're not facing as many health issues now compared to back then. That might be so technically, but I don't know what percentage. I don't know what percentage of the pro wrestlers today are a lot fewer compared to back then that are prone to suffering some kind of health issue in the future. All right, so any more Live and Raw, or is it Live and Raw? He said it's funny how WWE catches the blame for the bad decisions of some of its wrestlers. Is the notion of personal responsibility gone? If some wrestlers are unable to prioritize saving for retirement or contributing to a health savings account, whose fault is that? If some people decide to be an independent contractor instead of going to college and starting an office career as an employee, who made that decision? And that is, that is a good point. I mean, nobody's forcing people to become a pro wrestler, to be an independent contracting wrestler. Like, nobody is forcing these people to do it. I understand it's basically a career decision. It is up to your own personal choice, and I get that. I understand that. Nobody's going, hey, you have to be an independent contractor. Like, if you don't like it, get out of here. You know what I'm saying? If you don't like watching Raw, then stop watching. Stop it. Get out of here. If you don't like it, get out. If you don't like it, get out. Or don't do it. Don't do it. Nobody's forcing you to do it. And I get that. I get that. You know what I'm saying? I understand that. But it would help, I think, the in-ring performers, and it would help their careers, not just their careers, their family, their livelihood. If you take good care of your employees, because these guys are putting their health on the line for your company that you're making money off of, that you are basically exploiting like a pimp, a PIMP pimp, and you're using them as your bottom bitch, and you're selling them out there like a line of women, like an actual pimp. Like, like the Godfather came out with his line of HOs, and hey, check out this beautiful chick, check out this brunette, check out this blonde, check out this, these different hotties. That's what wrestlers are. That's what they are. They are a line of women to be selected and used up, chewed up and spit out by the pimp, by the promoter, guys like Vince McMahon. So he's using these people as a way to make money. It's almost like, why do you even need people like Vince McMahon to promote wrestling? Why can't it be just the wrestlers themselves doing it themselves? Because what? Why can't it be the actual wrestlers themselves that have their own companies, that have their own businesses, where they don't have to go to WWE? You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine a world without WWE, or at least without Vince McMahon, and instead it's the actual wrestlers themselves that have control of the WWE, that have control of the booking and the writing and the healthcare and so on and so on and so forth. It would be very different, but I think it would be interesting. I like to see a world that's kind of like that. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Vince as a businessman. He's able to achieve so much and promote wrestling so well around the world. He's very successful. I get it. So, but it doesn't change the fact that he could do so much more to help out his employees, or not even the employees, the independent contractors that work for his company, that are signed to his company, and it would. Isn't that just common sense? Like, in terms of like on a morality basis, on a, hey, these guys are putting their bodies on the line for me and their health on the line for me. Why don't I take care of them? Why don't I be there? Why don't I at least give them that health care and a long-term, medical and cover the expenses, the medical expenses, and take care of their health care expenses in the long run. You know what I'm saying? Even if it does cause them some money. I mean, the guy's already a multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever, and it's like, it's a dilemma. It is an actual dilemma, So, man, oh man. Okay, so Uno the Great mentioned to the this particular reply. So he responded to Live and Raw. He said, "Personal responsibility, working hard, being respectful are all old school ideals that are ripe to make a comeback." So Sam MC, the next post, said, "Mark, it wasn't a rant and nor was it anti-WWE. It was a simple truth that most anyone who looked into how the WWE works was aware of. Guys like those mentioned guys like those mentioned in the article don't have a vested interest in change. Couple that with the fact that most wrestlers would work for free, as the dream of being pro wrestlers outweighs common sense. The WWE is exploiting the system, and there's no sugarcoating it." Yes, I like to think that's the case. They're exploiting the system. They're exploiting their employees, and yeah, I mean, my goodness gracious, like, that's what it is. I understand why Vince McMahon is defensive. Don't get it twisted. Like, I get it. He's made a ton of money off these guys. It would be, I think it would just help. And he doesn't have to face these scrutinies and these, this kind of negative press from people like John Oliver. I mean, isn't Vince McMahon the kind of guy that was so worried about like negative publicity and like negative feedback from like the steroid scandals and running for Senate, and like he wanted to make his company look as good as possible when Linda McMahon was running for Senate, back in I think it was 2008 or 2009, I can't remember. And so he turned his company PG, and he made everything so PC and politically correct, and very Disney-fied and happy and like child and kid friendly and family friendly. And you couldn't say anything that was like offensive. You couldn't say anything that was like anything edgy, and so he had to tone down everything. I mean, he likes that. He likes good publicity instead of bad publicity, because if he gets bad publicity, it might affect his business. It might affect his income. He wants to make more money. And so this kind of negative publicity from somebody like a John Oliver is a bad thing. It's a negative thing. You know what I'm saying? It puts a bad light on WWE. So you would think that somebody like Vince McMahon would want to keep his company as looking good and as safe and clean as possible, which includes giving your company, your employees healthcare and listing them as employees instead of independent contractors. Oh man. So is there any more? IWC champion. It's nice to see the people who get paid the most, but WWE seem to think there's no problem with how things are. Yeah, the Miz, again, the Miz is a made guy. He's one of the top guys they have. He's very successful, and WWE and Vince McMahon have given him so much. It's almost like, because the Miz is comfortable where he's at. It's kind of like back in the day, I think it was the late 80s, where I think it was Jesse Ventura who wanted to unionize the workers, but it was Hulk Hogan who ended up snitching on him, and he ended up telling Vince McMahon and all that, and gave him a heads up. And because it was Hulk Hogan who was, he's the most benefited and the top guy in the company, and he's made the most money, and he's treated the best compared to everybody else. So he was able to kind of use that and kind of go against what what Jesse Ventura was talking about, and be like, well, no, we don't want this unionized stuff, because it might end up taking down his success. It might end up being a problem for Hulk Hogan, because he was the top guy in WWE at that time in the 1980s. Is probably paid the most by the company, and so he was probably in a position where he didn't want to be taken down. He didn't want to be treated as a lesser individual. He didn't want to be seen as, he wanted to defend the company that was paying him. He wanted to defend Vince McMahon, who was giving him the most money and the biggest paydays, and he had that really, really good relationship with Vince. And I would imagine that the Miz has kind of a similar thing. It's like this guy's treated the best compared to everybody else, so he kind of has to defend the slave driver. He has to kind of defend the pimp, because he's getting paid the most by the pimp. He's getting paid the most by the slave driver. You know what I'm saying? Even though he's still considered as as a slave, or he's still considered an HO. He's still considered a pro, working for the pimp. But he's in a position where he's treated the best, and so it's almost like that competition of like, let's have this guy who is still not, he doesn't have the benefit of getting that health care or getting that independent contractor status taken away from him. He's still in the same the same category as the other jabronis, but he's treated a lot better in terms of giving him more opportunities. So he's going to be the one to kind of go against the other workers. He's going to be the guy that is like, hey guys, don't speak up, because WWE is treating me right, and so you guys should just shut your mouth, just shut up. And I'm the one who's I got to defend them, because they're treating me really, 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 really good. But not everybody's treated the same way. Miz is one guy. It's like he's the best treated slave out of the whole plantation. So he's the one who kind of speaks up and goes, hey, I don't want to be free. Hey, I don't want to be treated better. Or, hey, I don't want the other guys to be treated better because I'm the one who's getting, the best benefits. I'm the slave that gets treated the best by Massa. You know what I'm saying? Like, Massa is good. Massa's treating me the best. I gotta defend him, And it's like, Miz is kind of like that. He's kind of in that position of like, I gotta defend the corporate master because they're treating me the best compared to everybody else. Oh man! All right. So, is there any other comments? Let's see. Okay, so this is from Midget Swatter. Midget Swatter, nice name. He said, "Don't want to work in an industry where no healthcare is provided? Then don't become a sports entertainer. Simple." Okay. And I get it. It's kind of similar to the other guy that said, "Hey, if you don't like it, get out of here. Don't work here. Don't be a wrestler. Don't be a sports entertainer. Don't be in this business. If they don't have no health care, they don't have no workers union and all that. Like if you don't like it here, then get out of here." And so the Flawed Goblin actually ended up responding to him, and this is what the Flawed Goblin said. Darn, the billionaire class loves people like you. Work for peanuts and never complain while they do nothing and hoard everything. And you act like that amount of hours you put in at some meaningless to society job makes you better than others, but really you're just a wage slave that's too lost in your own BS to realize your own self-worth. I look at people like you who take these kind of stances and just feel sad for you. You'll never understand why you are wrong and actively vote against your own interests in favor of the few who con you into giving them everything. Maybe someday you'll get it. Yeah, I understand. I get it. It's a bad situation all around, so I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I mean, that's it for this episode of the Review Space. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell button for the latest notifications. And until next time, peace.